a brand new episode of the Happy Productive Podcast is about to begin. It's time to be inspired by simple and actionable solutions for you and your business. If you're an established entrepreneur or just laying down the first brick of your future empire, the mantra is the same. We will flip any failure into a positive and use it to our advantage. This show is all about turning coal into diamonds. With the right plan and mindset, anything is possible. I'm Jennifer Dawn, your host, business coach, and founder of Best Planner Ever, and I'm here to help you achieve all your ambitious goals. Success is closer than you think. Let's do this. Hey, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Happy Productive Podcast. I'm so excited to talk to my guest today, Dr. Hammond. Dr. Hammond, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So Dr. Hammond is a distinguished psychologist, executive coach, and founder of Hammond Psychology and Associates. She's also the creator and host of the well-received show Mental Health Moment. I think I most days have many mental health moments as I go through my day. Known for her expertise in mental health, burnout prevention, and leadership development, she engages as an international speaker and is an Amazon international best-selling author. So welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny. Like I love my podcast because it runs in parallel so many times with things that are going on in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating when I say today is a Tuesday, you guys. We're recording on a Tuesday, and it was this weekend that I was saying to myself, because I was having a little discussion because I coach myself all the time. And I was just like, Jennifer, oh, no. Here's what happened. So me and my son, Adam, we were out doing a Spartan race on Saturday, and we're on the mountain. And we were both talking about how when we get super busy, he's 21, almost 22, and he's a student at UPenn. And so very, very, very demanding for all the things he's doing. And so we're on the mountain and we were both talking and we were like, when we both get really busy, I was like, the first thing to go is my workout as I'm huffing to get up this mountain. Like, oh my God, I am not as fit as I want to be on this stupid Spartan race. And he was like, yeah, Mom, because he has an internship in a place in the city. And he just had a crazy week. And he was like, yeah, the first thing to go is the gym. And we were talking about this and I was like, we need to do better about like not sacrificing like the one thing for personal care that's so important for both of us in, my demanding career, his demanding career he's building. And it was just really like, wow, like I need to stop doing this. Like no more. The personal care goes first. And so then, of course, here you are today and I'm going to talk with us about burnout. And I think it's such a relevant topic. So I would love to hear just a little bit of your story of like, how did you come to be doing this work? And then I'm curious, like, was there something in your life that really resonated with you in regards to burnout and now helping other people not to struggle with this?
Yes, absolutely. And first, I want to say I love your story. That's so common for a lot of us that we tend to put a lot of things before our own self-care. And speaking of personal stories, I definitely can relate to that as well. So I've been in the field now 15 years. I started a private practice about 15 years ago, but I will say throughout my own personal journey of understanding how important self-care is, I definitely hit burnout at some points. I was just like what you were describing. I was finding so many excuses to be like, well, if I don't get, if I do 4 hours of sleep, then I have more time to get my work done. If I skip the workout, like I would start to calculate. I was like, if I skip the workout, then I have more time to get something done. Like that was my thought process. And I lived like that for a very long time. And it's not uncommon. But the problem, and I will say, is it definitely leads to burnout when we do that. There was definitely a time in my life, many times in my life, actually, where I did not put myself first. Everything else came first. So I have even more empathy for this space that I'm in now, which is teaching burnout prevention to different organizations and corporations, because I definitely know personally what that is like. But the good news is on the other side of that, on the positive side of that, when you do make yourself your number one priority, and like now I go through because I've trained my brain in a way that I have to reset a lot of times. I'm like, no, 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 you have to go to the gym, or, you have to get sleep, or those types of things are like number one priority. So everything else still gets done. It's just that the priorities have shifted. So I definitely know the personal journey of that. And of course, the professional side of it is, as I mentioned before, I have been a psychologist. I've been in the mental health field. Absolutely love this field. I love wellness. I love seeing people win. And I've worked a lot with the media and a lot of different companies. I speak. I have a private practice part of the time that I'm at. So doing a lot of things, juggling as well, being a wife and a mom. It's definitely more beneficial when you get to the other side of putting yourself first and prioritizing your self-care.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just realized that you have a Gators helmet
Oh,
behind you.
yes.
And I went to Florida State and I was like, girl, she's
No.
got a Gator helmet there. Did you go to University of Florida?
I did. And you know what? My husband is a Seminole. So I will tell him after this interview, I'll have to tell him. So we are definitely a house divided. And we are fanatics in football. So
Oh
yeah, it's
my
always
goodness.
interesting every year. Yes.
Yeah, and SEC football is no joke. I live in
No.
New York now. Oh my gosh, you're gonna love this. So I live in New York, and my son, as I mentioned, is at UPenn. And
Yeah.
so last year they had a football game, and it was like parents weekend or something, and they had a
Hmm.
football game. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Like, let's go to the football game. And he's like, Mom, it's not what you're expecting, because I grew up with Florida State football and
Right.
the
Huge.
rivalries, and these are just huge, huge, huge.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, he's just young. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, because I'm like, whatever. We go to the game. It was the lamest football game I've
Oh
ever been to. It was
no.
UPenn versus Harvard. They were playing Harvard. And I'm like, oh, that sounds like exciting. There
Yeah.
was like nobody in the stands.
Oh wow. Very different. Yeah.
And they did this weird thing where they like threw bread into the stands. I don't even know what that was
I
about.
don't know.
And I just like, I'd never seen so many empty seats in a stadium. And I was like,
Yeah.
honey, you're right. I'm like,
It's
and
different.
then I felt bad. I was like, maybe you should have gone to a different college, because
Yeah, you need a
you're
different college
missing out.
experience.
I know, right? You're missing out now. He's
Yeah.
doing great, but it was just so
Yeah.
funny. So I love that big rivalry, and I
Yeah.
think that's so funny because boy, they take it very seriously.
Oh, very seriously.
Their football is very serious.
Yes. Yes, for sure.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic. Okay, so I'm curious with burnout, was there a moment where I noticed that like over this weekend, we have so much power when we make a decision. And this weekend, I felt it. I felt that power of just talking
Hmm.
with my son, wanting to be a good mom, set a good example for him. And I was just like, no more. I can't do this anymore. Like I'm no more am I going to, the first thing that goes is my personal care. And I felt the power of it when you just make a decision. And when you decide, it's like everything
Yeah.
sort of moves. It just like gets out of the way. And so I'm curious, like, how do you help people like get to a place where they can make a decision that yields like a positive change that actually lasts over, not like, oh, my willpower for 2 days and then I'm back
Yeah.
off the wagon here. Like, how do we help people to really like make a decision, make a change in their life that stands the test of time?
Yeah, yeah, that's really great. So a couple of tips on that. One of the things, I'm a big believer and advocate for baby steps, because
Hmm.
I found as a psychologist that a lot of times when we try to take too many big leaps, we can do that, but like you said, it's not sustainable. So you do
Right.
something huge, like I did this huge self-care thing for the first week or two or three, and then by like the following month, you're not sticking to what you wanted to do. So I'm a huge fan of baby steps. So one of the things that I always advocate for people to do, especially if you're in a space of like, I know I need to do more self care, I'm trying to shift my mindset, is what I call take a minute a day. And this is something I personally did as well, because I used to be in the headspace of like, I don't have time and I'm so overwhelmed and all those things, which are not true. Just have to
Yeah.
reprioritize. But nonetheless, it's 60 seconds a day that you devote to yourself. You can time yourself with a cell phone. And in those 60 seconds, you can take some deep breaths. You can take a walk outside. You can, if you believe in prayer, like whatever it is for you in those 60 seconds. And what you do over time is you are training your brain to understand that you deserve to reset and recharge, and you deserve to take that time for yourself. And so now, fast forward, I take way more than 60 seconds a day, but I didn't start out that way. So that way is a much more sustainable way to do that. And it becomes a habit over time. And I love the book. I just read, I think it was last year or so, but Atomic Habits, for
James
example, by
Clear.
James
Yeah.
Clear. Yes. Like,
Yeah.
so I was like, oh, I was like, that's everything
Yeah.
I've been teaching, because
Yeah.
but it really is true. Like as a
Yeah.
psychologist, we know just taking those baby steps will help to change your mindset. Because again, when you take the leaps, too many leaps, sometimes it's not sustainable.
Yeah, and it's just too much. And I know that I
Yeah.
tend to set the bar way too high. Like even listening to you talk like 60 seconds a day, I'm like, oh, I could do that 25 times a day, because I just like tend to like
Right.
set that bar too high. And I love baby steps because
Yes.
that's worked so well for me too, to just like lower the bar.
Yeah.
And even when I work with clients around their money and their cash flow, I do a lot of work with their cash flow. I always am like, look, we're not going to be there right on day one, but it's about setting that habit. I love
Yes.
Atomic Habits too.
Yes.
And it's about the consistency. It doesn't matter how long we're showing up each day. It matters that we show up each day and that we have
Yes.
that consistency and that baby step, that baby step. So I love that you mentioned that, because even like when like, hey, I need to create a habit, or I choose to create a habit of self-care, sometimes in the beginning, like setting aside, let's say, an hour a day can
Oh yeah.
feel
That's
way too
overwhelming.
big and like way too
Yes.
much. Like there's no way I can find an
Yeah.
hour. But I
Yeah.
love that you said start with 1 minute, because even
One
with
minute.
1 minute, that's pretty hard to argue that you can't find 1 minute. In fact,
Exactly.
that's total BS. If you say
Of
you can't
course.
find 1 minute, you're
60
full of it.
seconds. Yes.
You're full of it. And you
Yeah.
can totally time it. And then if you can do it for 1 minute and you can see, oh, look, I did it. I feel better. Everything's okay. Then you can gradually work your
Yeah.
way up.
Yeah. And your mind and body will start to crave that time. Like
Yeah.
after a while of doing things that you're like, oh, that felt really good, to stop and take deep
Yeah.
breaths, or, whatever you chose to do in that minute, you're retraining your brain. So your brain will expect something different. So like you said, so it'll be easier when you decide to move it up to 5 minutes, to 10 minutes, 15 minutes, like because you've trained yourself to think that way, and accept that for you, because you
Yeah.
deserve that.
Yeah. How do you help people reconcile the guilt that can come up when, like, I feel this sometimes, like I go out on my morning walk and I'm like, I'm going to walk for an hour, and
Yeah.
then I'll cut it back to like 45 minutes while I'm walking, and then it's like a half an hour, because my brain is just like starts to think about my clients, think about the things I want to do for them. Then I start to feel guilty because it's just like, all this time. And it's a real battle of
Yeah.
just like, so how do you reconcile the guilt of I'm not doing something for somebody else right now because I'm doing something for myself?
Yep.
How do you help people with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And oftentimes when I'm working with organizations, that's actually something that comes up because there may be a team of people who are overachievers, they're high in the corporate space, or they're like, really strong business leaders, things like that. So it can feel overwhelming to do the self-care, because you're like, wait a minute, I'm not doing my work, or I'm not spending time with family, or whatever else that you want to be doing. But the good news is, when you really truly understand how much a commitment to self care can positively impact you, which is not just for you, it is for the people around you. So when you become this, something I preach all the time, but when you really become the best version of who you are now in your business, or in your organization, or in your family life, or wherever it is that you have to show up in, you are going to be a better version of yourself for those people around you as well, which they want, by the way. They don't want an overworked, stressed out, overwhelmed person. They want a productive, happy, giving, or, whomever, whatever your personality traits are, they want that great version of you around them as well. So that's something, and it's not an overnight mental shift to get to that place, I will be honest, but that's something over time that a lot of people have started to recognize more, that, wait a minute, when I work on me, I'm also working on helping others around me. It's a way to help others around me as well.
Yeah, that actually has helped me so much of when I'm out walking and I feel myself
Mhm.
teeter-tottering on like, oh, cut it short. I'm like, no, actually, while I'm out on my walk, I'll think through, whatever problem or whatever as a coach I'm helping a client with. And I find that I'm like, wait, I'm way better. I'm actually doing I'm working for them by taking care of myself, of like taking this quiet time to actually like step aside, really think through the strategy. And that really was a great way that it kind of helped me turn off some of the guilt and then just like stick to, I'm doing my self-care, but while I'm out here walking, I can think through strategies. I can think through however we're going to approach things. Are there
Mhm.
any, and that's just a tip I want to share with everybody of just
Yeah.
like, hey, wait a
Mhm.
second, taking care of me is actually working for them. So that way I can show up in a better way. And that was a great tip for me that helped to flip it off, switch it off, I should say.
All
Um,
good.
what are some other tips that you can
Yeah.
share with our listeners on how to prioritize self care or bring
Yeah.
it like into their day?
Yeah. The other thing that I highly recommend people do is hopefully once a week is ideal, but is ask yourself 3 questions. And this is something I found over time that we don't do enough of for our mental wellness. So the 3 questions are: number one, asking yourself, how am I doing? Because it's really, really easy to be worrying about everyone else around you and checking in with everyone else on your team, in work, in life, your friends, your family. There's a lot going on. We're bombarded with information and not checking in with ourselves. So, number one is to ask yourself, how am I doing? And be honest with yourself. And it's
Mhm.
okay if your answer is like, I'm so stressed out, overwhelmed, I'm in a dark place, like whatever that is, just be honest with yourself. The second question is to ask yourself, what do I need? That is emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally. If you were to draw a box and have like 4 quadrants almost, physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and really truly ask yourself, what do you need in each of those areas, which is very different depending on what season of your life you're in. And then the third question is to ask yourself, what step do I need to take today to improve my life? And again, baby steps count too. If you're like, you know what, my step is I need to start taking 60 seconds a day. Awesome. That's your step. If your step is I need to take a break today because I'm so overwhelmed, like I need a mental health day, that's your step. Like whatever your step is what's right for you. But it's really the process of reflecting on those 3 things. And if that part that I mentioned that you hopefully you can do weekly is too overwhelming, which is okay, then sometimes you need the help of a coach or a mental health professional, which is there's nothing wrong with taking that added step.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this so much. And so, how do you help somebody who I love those questions, by the way? Just like the question about what do I need today? I'm like, I could just feel a shift in my body, like, oh, okay, wait, I can actually give me what I need. That's so wonderful. So, I love those questions. And when you answer those questions, and it's like, hey, I really, really need a mental health day. And often, we will talk ourselves out of it. It's like, I know what I need. I need a mental health day, but now here's the 55 reasons why I'm
Yep.
not actually going to do that for myself. So, how do you help somebody kind of transition into now turning that into an action that
Yeah.
we actually took the mental health day?
Yeah, and that's really great and also very common what you mentioned that sometimes we do know that we need a full day off, but we're like, you know what? I can't take a full day off because fill in the blank. I have too much going on in the business or at work or my kids or whatever it is that you can't take the full day, but how much time realistically could you give yourself? So maybe that particular day, it is not a full day, but it's like you snuck somehow an hour in, which was like a big deal. Then you celebrate that because it's so funny. A lot of times when I talk to different communities about self-care and about mental wellness, I always check in with the audience and I'm like, how do we think we're doing here with self-care? And everyone's always like, oh, so horrible. And, we need to make a lot of changes. But also I find that we don't give ourselves enough credit. So we have to celebrate instead of feeling guilty about the fact that oh my God, I needed a mental health day. I didn't take the mental health day. But if you took the hour that day for yourself somehow, some way, that counts too. So wherever you're at, we're all at different mental points when it comes to self-care, but wherever you're at, take the next step. Right. And again, sometimes a mental health day might be a leap for somebody listening to this. So it might be the hour, which is like big deal, like cool, right?
Yeah.
So it's really finding those times though and celebrating the steps that you're starting to take. If you took 60 seconds and you have never taken a break for yourself for, months, that I would celebrate, right? So it's celebrating the small wins too.
Oh, I love this so much. Years ago, in my coaching, I would ask my clients, what do you do for yourself to completely like reset and just get back to feeling like you and being you? And for me, I have horses. And so when
Oh,
I
I love
spend time with
horses.
the horse and I go out to the barn,
That's so fun.
I know it is so fun, and we just got my daughter a horse too, so now we have 2 horses, so her and I can
Oh,
ride together
I love that.
because she just turned 15, and I'm like, "Those years are so rough." I wanted
Yeah.
her and I to have something that we could connect on, and it's interesting that when she was 12, she said to me one day, she's like we were coming back from the barn, and she's like, "Mom, what is it about the barn that makes everything okay in the world?" And I was
Wow.
like, it just is, I get it, honey. I get it. Like, that's like my solace. And so when I want to reset, and it's funny because as me and my son were talking this weekend, I'm like, okay, exercise goes first and my barn time goes second. And I should know this, like I'm in the space, but it just sort of like hit me like, wait a second,
Yeah.
those are the two things that go first. And then I'm like diving in with clients. And so those are the two things I'm like, no more, no more. But like going to the barn for me is like it's a reset. I'm not thinking about anything. I have to be present. I
Yeah.
love that time. And with my clients, like I've asked many of my clients, what do you do that just like really reconnects you, grounds you, gets you
Yeah.
out of your head? And it's shocking to me how many people don't have an answer to that question.
Yeah.
And they say, I don't know. I don't
Hmm.
know. But I think it's so important that you've got to have at least one thing in your life that
Yes.
just resets you. And so I'm like, get out there, like start figuring it out. And so
Yes.
would you like will you agree with this? Like, do we
Absolutely.
need to have something that just completely
Yes.
resets us?
Yes, and at least one thing like you said, and it's okay if you haven't figured it out yet, but like you said, try different things to figure it out because not everything like what I do for my self-care might not for the next person like, oh, I have no desire to do that, right? Like and it's
Right.
okay. It doesn't have to be what your friend does or your family member does or your coworker does. It's for you. Like it's really a space of reflection for you to work on if you don't know the answer immediately, for you to work on finding out what that thing is because not only, I mean, there's plenty of mental health benefits for the reset recharge, but also physically, you need that as well. Because especially for the business owners listening to this, I can totally relate. Just juggling different businesses, like a lot of times we can get into like fight or flight mode in our bodies where we're just like, what's the next thing? I got to do the to do list. This is due. This is coming up. Like it's so physically overwhelming on our bodies. So when you find the thing for you, where you can, your like not just mentally, but physically reduce your stress level, if you will, reduce your blood pressure, like calm your body down. That is also going to have benefits for you physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And it just feels good, right, to be in that space. But it really is important for your physical and mental health to find that reset recharge. For me, it's spending time in nature. Like you were saying, like in the barn, like for me, spending time in nature is just like like my Zen time to reconnect and just be grounded and just take some deep breaths because it's busy. It's busy and hectic, and we're all busy. So it's really important to find that thing that resets and recharges you.
Yeah, I love it. And I love what you said about it doesn't have to be the same thing for all of us. My
No, it's not.
husband plays pickleball. I'm like, not my game, but he
Yeah,
loves it. And he goes and he plays and it's social and he's outside and,
yeah.
and it reconnects. And it can be as simple as just being outside in nature. It doesn't have to cost anything.
Nope.
So don't think you have to go buy a horse. You don't. They're pricey. It's my only
Yeah.
expensive habit. But like you don't it doesn't have to be something that you spend money on. It can literally be
Nope.
just as simple as a walk in the woods or by a lake
Yes.
or just sitting on a rock, like whatever that
Yeah.
is for you. But I think it is so important to really figure that out. If you can't answer the question of what do you do that just completely resets you and grounds you, like maybe this is a great opportunity to start exploring some different things and figure this out for yourself so that you can
Yeah.
bring more of that into your day to day.
Yeah. And it's interesting too that you brought that up because what I found is for many of us, we have to unlearn the things that we were taught in our childhood, which is probably why for many of us, it's like, what do you do to reset, recharge? I don't know because we weren't trained that that was
Yeah.
okay. Like I have a
Yeah.
lot of conversations with my son. My son just turned 12 and we have a lot of conversations about self care and mental health and mental wellness which I definitely don't recall growing up. It was just a different time. So it was
Yeah.
just a go, go, go mentality. So many of us now are like, wait, what? Reset, recharge. Like, what's that? Like
Right.
we're, just be a machine. But it's like, no, because you're going to break down and you're going to hit burnout if you don't have something in place to take that pause that you need.
I agree. Like there was no talk of when I grew up of like self-care
No,
and
I don't remember it. If
no.
there was, I don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't remember it either. I remember
No.
like do your chores, take care of your sisters or you're going to get beat when I get home. Like that's
Yeah.
it. Like
Yes. It
okay.
was, yeah,
Yeah, right? Very different way
it
that
was
we grew
very
up.
different. Yeah.
Very different. But these days, with so many things on us, I just feel like burnout is such a relevant topic. So many of us have experienced, but it's so preventable. It's so
Yes.
preventable. And honestly, it's one of the things that we can control. There's so many things outside of our control, but our self care is something that is 100% within our control to do something about.
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing too with this whole process is it doesn't you don't have to do this alone necessarily. So again, if whether you need the help of a mental health professional or you need a coach, I've had many different business coaches that for different things, different reasons. I've been to therapy before when I was in graduate school, like or even a trusted friend or family member, like there's other people who can help you on this journey of life. Like you don't have to do all of this alone because a lot of times I found that people feel alone in what they're going through, but that's actually 99% of the time not really true.
Yeah.
There's so like millions of people that are going through what you're going through, but it does feel like you're isolated, like you're all alone. But the reality is there's many other people that can relate to what you're going through. Maybe not exactly, but there's also a lot of people who are out here to support you and whatever it
Yeah.
is, wherever you're at in this mental health journey and mental wellness journey.
Agree completely, like, the lies that we tell ourselves,
Oh, yes.
we just lie all the time,
All the
like,
time.
I'm all by myself, I'm in this alone, nobody can help
Yes.
me, it's just bullshit, and we just
Yes.
lie, and
Yes.
so when you can start to really recognize, I think, the lie that you're telling yourself and step into the truth, because the truth is, you're not alone, there's so many people that live for the opportunity to help you like in these times of crisis. There's just, and if you can just align more with the truth and get out of your head, I think that's just such a really important first step.
Yeah. Well, I have it in my next book about negative self talk because unfortunately it can be really powerful. And like you
Yeah.
mentioned, the lot, like just because you think something does not mean that it's true, especially if you're depressed, especially if you're anxious. Like you will tell yourself so many things about yourself that are absolutely
Yeah.
not true. Like you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not fill in the blank, like you're not sufficient, like all these things that are not true, you're not lovable. Like there's so
Right.
many lies that we tell ourselves, which is why it can be really helpful to have supportive people around you who will tell you the truth
Yeah.
and the strengths and the good things that you do have about you versus living in that world of negative self-talk, which can spiral into some darker mental places that we don't want to get into and spiral into more burnout.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is one of the things I've worked on a lot in my own personal journey is
Yeah.
asking myself when that self-talk comes up, is this truth or is this a lie?
Yeah.
And really, is it true? Is it really true? Is it true? Byron Katie, love Byron Katie, her 4 questions. And the first one is it true? And second one,
Mm,
is it absolutely true? And there's so much power in those questions. And I
yeah.
find that when I catch myself in a lie and then I align with truth or choose truth instead, it literally quiets the mind. It just quiets so much of that chatter. And
Yep.
I really feel like that we fuel the lies. So
Mhm.
we tell ourselves we're not good enough, we're not pretty enough, we're not whatever enough. And then we got to keep that going. We got to make ourselves right. So we keep it going, and we spend so much time and energy fueling the lie. And then
Yep.
it just makes us feel like crap. And then our brains are just on fire.
Yeah.
And when we can identify like this is a lie I'm telling myself and going forward I choose truth, it literally just quiets like so many things, at least for me, it just quiets so many
Yeah.
things. And it's just a really, really powerful thing to, cut through all this crap so that we can
Yeah.
really just be happier, make the choices that we want to make, not be all burned out and crazy stress machines.
Yeah. Yeah. And something that really helps is like to almost like zoom out, because it's so easy to zoom into your current situation at this particular time, and whatever it is, maybe something's not working and it's like, oh, I'm a failure, or I didn't do this right, or you're just so laser focused on that particular thing. But when you really zoom out and you look at your whole entire life, I just read something recently about reminding ourselves that things that happen to us are chapters in our story. They're not the whole larger story, but we can get really caught up in this one particular part of our journey. And then we stress out, we get burnt out, we get depressed, we get anxious about it. And we don't like take a step back to be like, wait a minute, like 99% of the time you were fine in this particular situation. But the one thing, right, we get stuck on sometimes. So yeah, it's definitely a journey.
Oh, so great. So great. I could talk about this stuff all day with my new Gator fan friend.
I love it. I love it. Yes, Gator fanatic. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, fanatic. I love it. I love it. Okay. So share with everybody, because obviously you're doing amazing work in the world. So where can everybody find you? Where can they go buy your books? Just share where everybody can find you.
Yeah. So the best place is my website. It's drnekeshiahammond.com, DRNEKESHIA Hammond.com. Or information about my new book coming out is at mindsettrainingbook.com.
Oh, I love that so much. All right. And we will put that in the show notes so that you guys can all go look it up, grab the book. I'm sure it's going to be absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show with us today. And everybody who's listening, you guys, it's great to listen. I love it. But there's so many takeaways from today's show. So take something, just one thing, take a baby step, because this is happy productive, and it doesn't really, you don't get the result if you don't actually take some action. So just take a baby step, pick one thing from today's show, implement it into your life, and then, obviously just go from there. And thank you. Thank you again for being here with me today. Great show, great topic.
Thank you.
All right, that's it, you guys. Get out there and have a happy, productive day, y'all. Bye. I hope you found today's episode of the Happy Productive Podcast inspiring. Every successful business is formed by a set of small, consistent, and attainable steps. If you want to learn more, come visit us at jenniferdawncoaching.com to take your next step and learn how to meet your business goals. On our website, you're going to find free resources along with links to the life-changing coaching programs that have transformed the lives of so many of our clients, including the Coaching Academy and our Unbreakable retreats. Many of them started their journey by listening to this podcast. That's it. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for our next episode.